Everybody, welcome back to a very special edition of VCTV. Today, we are going to be talking not just about construction, property, and real estate tech, but some very unique, deep technologies as well. I want to touch on a number of topics today because we have a very special guest with us, just one-on-one here with me today on VCTV to talk about what we're starting to see as he's experienced a lot of this during his career as both an investor as an entrepreneur. Again, in those areas of how property, construction, and real estate is starting to intersect greatly with technology, but more so how deep technology is not just playing a role in them, but also in some other major areas, including potentially 5G, the future of connectivity, quantum, as we spoke about earlier today on VCTV, but also artificial intelligence, as he is one of the, if not the premier experts in the world around this area of technology. So before we get started, a big thank you to your audience for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, click subscribe. If you would like to be on a show like today as an investor to join our outstanding guests this afternoon and or other investor panels, do reach out. We'd love to find the right industry, technology, or region around the world for you to speak on. And entrepreneurs, just a few more days left here in 2020. Love to have you join our virtual stage, but even more so looking towards the next year ahead, getting your company out there in the world, getting real-time feedback, and also building outstanding, phenomenal, foundational relationships with great investors. There's no better place to do it than here on VCTV. Do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right set of investors and topic for you to be a part of. A big thank you to the LA Token team and Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcoming in, again, a great friend and a premier expert, by far one of the biggest experts, again, if not the premier expert in artificial intelligence and around the world, not just in my personal humble opinion, but others around the world. Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence, the one and only Gary Fowler. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kyle. And you know, the Indians have a phrase for you from India, and that is guru. You are the guru of tech.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's so kind of you
I
for
don't
the
know if you get the
words.
term Maharaja too, but I mean, you're amazing, really. I love it. Every time I talk to you, the topics, the ideas, the positivity, it's just fantastic. And congratulations to La Token. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know, not to, I want to make this all about you today because there is so much knowledge that you have to share and I appreciate the kind words, but tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and a little your background. I know you have a show as well that you talk with a lot of experts on as well. So if you can do a little shameless plugging of what you do and then we'll get into today's topics.
Yeah, I mean, so I've done, you know, in our portfolio today, we have 18 companies. So most of the companies we have are in artificial intelligence. We're investors. We're a venture studio. GSD Venture Studios is my company. I've had two unicorns. I love tech, right? I've done 16 companies. I started 21 years old, really knowing right out of graduate school, not really knowing what to do. I had to learn the hard way. And unfortunately, I didn't have mentors in the beginning. So I went to my dad and I said, you know, Dad, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And he said, you need to get a job, son. You went to graduate school. You should use those diplomas. You should be a professor. And I'm like, that's not what I like. You told me you wanted to go to medical school then. Go get your medical degree. Go, you want to be an osteopath? Go do it. You know, and I was like, you know, that was my first lesson that you're not going to have positivity along the way of being an entrepreneur. And you better be able and willing to face it. So, you know, I've done 16 companies, over 30 years worth of experience. I've been fortunate and blessed to have a lot of luck. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which is sold to Salesforce 15 months ago for 1.35 billion. It was great. A little company from Israel. I actually, as a senior executive of the company, renamed it to Click Software, came up with a family of products, and the rest is history. Luck is a lot of it. And I stumbled into AI a number of years ago. I worked in Ops 5 and Lisp. I was working as one of the companies that I did worked with the government out of Washington, and I did that for a few years. And I got enamored with it, understanding there were possibilities, although couldn't be realized because hardware had not gotten to the right level, nor had the sophistication of the artificial intelligence. So here we are today, right? It's a perfect storm in a good way. for opportunities. So I'm an investor. We're building a $100 million fund right now, impact fund out of Atlanta, Georgia. I've also got my private money that I invest with several billionaire friends of mine. I'm the poor guy, by the way. I get the little tiny breadcrumbs, not even breadcrumbs. There's something smaller than that, but those are good for me. You know what I mean? So the little crumbs are okay. I love to build things, Kyle. You know, I build cars. I build houses. I built 27 houses. You know, and literally got in and wired them and those kind of things as part of the crew because I wanted to understand it. And some pretty big, 8,000 square feet kind of houses.
Wow.
And anyhow, I just love building things. You know, and one thing that I learned a long time ago is that the knowledge you have is like a pyramid that's upside down. It's called transportability of knowledge. John's Kao, KAO, came up with it. It's called the Innovation Nation. And that knowledge that you have building a house can be applied to building a company. And the people, unfortunately, most people in their lives don't get a chance to take the knowledge like yourself for going to China, learning about weather and understanding and technology and IoT, and how does that apply to different environments. But it's really important. So for instance, algorithmic math and music are similar, right? So there's similarities. So how do we apply that? And that's really what fascinates me, which drives my curiosity. And by the way, one of the things, I don't know if I ever told you, but in my late 40s, a few years ago, I got divorced and went back to school for 5 years. So I went actually to school in Russia, and you know, understood that I wanted to learn and try things differently. And so having that passion, that optimism as a 20-year-old to explore the world is different, because as we get older, we get more like closed, right? We don't want to try things. And the key is to be successful as an entrepreneur is to question and want to see things differently and try it. And so keeping your whys wide open is really important. And as you said, I've got 3 shows. I've got the Shark Tank of Bangladesh, which has a vibrant startup community. I've got GSD Presents, which I do tomorrow. And then I have Gary's Picks. And I'm doing GSD Presents every week now because we've had amazing success with it. And, you know, having people like yourself on the show that have incredible backgrounds, incredible knowledge, and, you know, and passion are really important for us. So tomorrow I have the former Chief Security Officer at Apple and Dave Luna, one of the foremost experts in global security on. We're talking about how the world has changed and areas like AI and cybersecurity, quantum computing and cybersecurity, and how to be able to protect yourself and, more importantly, profit it during these times.
That's outstanding. I mean, Gary, you've got so much going on, so much experience. I don't know where to begin except just around your building the home example of what it takes to build a home to what it takes to build a company. And today we wanted to discuss a little bit about construction, property, and real estate. But before we get into that, let's talk about that analogy. So, you know, building a house and building a business are very similar. Share a little bit more, if you can, about that for those entrepreneurs who may be tuning in for the first time and trying to understand that analogy.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I did a TED Talk, one of these TEDx's a couple of years ago, because part of life is about really visualizing and putting yourself in that position. You know, Jim Carrey, before he got his first $10 million check, wrote himself a check and said he was going to get it. So put yourself, you know, in that particular metaphysical position, visualize where you want to go. And in your head, I don't really tell people about it. I just do it. But in my head, because if it happens, if I tell you, you know, I'm going to buy the best Bugatti in the world, you're going to say, oh, come on, you know, and it's better just to do it, because after the fact, people buy off on it. And so I've had it happen a number of times, and I learned it's better just to do it rather than, you know, talk about doing it, because it's much, and my success rate in doing it, once you visualize, is probably 98%, 99% once you visualize. Of course, it is a stretch and it's not easy, but putting it, you know, barring unforeseen circumstances, you can make those types of things come true. So And, you know, I've done music concerts. I've had 3,000 people in my concerts, did classical music. I never had been involved with music before, got some of the top folks in classical music, then converted it to doing, contemporary music, Lady Gaga type stuff. And then I said, well, geez, what if I did a big concert? Then I said, well, what if I get up and do speaking and talk about visualization, passion, optimism, visualization, and do it at the same time? Is that possible? And then what if I can make some money doing it? And I thought, well, is it possible? Absolutely. So in 2 months I did it. And, the world lines up for you.
Right.
When you go down through, it's like when you get up in the morning and you hit your toe in a corner of a door and it hurts and the rest of the day is shitty. And the reason is because you put yourself in that negative state. Well, if you can reorient and put yourself in a positive state, and as a clinical psychologist, one of the things you look at is, when you're doing things like systematic desensitization, it's getting away from the fear by supplementing it with something else. So put yourself in a positive state. Well, as an entrepreneur, it's critically important because guess what? It ain't easy sometimes. It's hard, Kyle, right? I mean, there's times where you're going like, this is not fun. This is hard work. But if you focus on it and try it hard enough, you can figure out a way around it. My company, Eva, we weren't sure. I had to pivot the company 3 times. When we started out as a Google-like search for the personal cloud, at that point in time, it didn't work. Why? Because people didn't want to pay for it. Why? Because they forgot their passwords and they didn't want to admit it. And Google's free. That's crazy. And so they got this big issue with data. We all have a problem with our personal cloud. As you know, Kyle, as I've said many times, most of us have about 300,000 items within our personal cloud. The entire web in 1996 was 257,000. We have multiple, you could have 7, 10 email addresses and you say, no. But then when you count Hotmail and AOL and Yahoo, it starts to add up. And at the same time, we're inundated with data. Every single day it's being thrown at us. How many times every week does your audience say, I know that file exists, but I can't find it? Why? I've either forgotten the keywords or the location. And yet, this is a simple problem. We are our own universe. We can't figure it out. And it gets worse every year. The amount of information doubles. So you think about, this is a simple problem. If I'm a startup, this is a problem that everybody has. Right? And it needs to be addressed, but we haven't done it yet. So these are the kind of things that are really interesting from my standpoint. And, going back to it, as I said, being an entrepreneur, the knowledge that you have is that positivity works. Positivity wins. If you believe, people come around you and they want to hang around with you if you're positive and you exude that energy, like yourself, Kyle. You exude the energy and they can feel it, right? And that's part of being the CEO of a company too. It's not bullshitting them, but at the same time, you got to lead and be commanding and understand that, people want to hear the truth, but they want to hear it as a storyteller. Steve Jobs used to practice 6 weeks before he would do his presentation at his Moscone Center.
That's just, yeah. Sorry, keep going. Oh, sorry.
No. And I mean, each one of us, we've got to go down through and we've got to exude that energy and we don't. And why? It's crazy. To me, to be able to go down through, I wasn't the best at doing presentations, but I took a couple courses at Stanford University and I started doing the storytelling. I said, let's not look at that as this is fear. This is fun. This is really fun, getting in front of thousands of people in an audience. It's fun, as you know, right? It feels good.
Yeah.
And if you can convey knowledge to make them better than they were when they first came in to see you, they feel better. Their company they're looking at things differently. You've accomplished something amazing. And so each one of the rule of threes, Kyle, as you take that knowledge, my rule of threes, you need somebody that's a storyteller and a team that can lead. You need somebody that's operations that can really get shit done. And you need somebody that's a technologist that understands that it's not all just about building the product, it's about selling the product. So they don't do the ever evolving technology twist where they never come up with anything and they burn through a lot of cash.
It's very, very, very true. And speaking on that, switching gears to technology.
Yeah.
Technology's cost. So we go from that visionary, we go from that operator, and then someone also in the core seat of technology. Looking at some of those areas that you focus on around deep tech. I mean, we talked about AI, we've talked about future connectivity, we've spoken about quantum and others. Talk to us about what you're seeing in terms of deep tech. This to me feels like the decade to just where we're just getting started around deep technologies in a big, exciting way. But what are you seeing? Talk to us a little bit about that from your view.
Well, I want to talk about that, Kyle, but I also want to go back to construction tech because I didn't fill in some of the blanks. It's
It's
really
all right.
important.
Let's go back to it. Yeah,
I
let's
want
go back to it.
the construction tech side. Now, I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania, right? I grew up in a little farm on the side of a mountain, not even 1,000 or 500 people in our village. I lived literally in a village next to the Amish. So I grew up in the middle of nowhere. And this is like, as a country boy, if you have a black and white animal that's pretty big in a field, it's probably a cow. Maybe it could be a horse, but if it doesn't have a fluffy tail, it's probably a cow, right? This is simple stuff. So let's talk about construction tech. What are the challenges we have today? It's highly inefficient. You got these people, they don't come on time. You don't know what kind of level of quality their work is, et cetera. So managing those inefficiencies is critically important. So let's talk about how you can do that. And I'll tell you what I did personally, which was one of the first homes on the East Coast of the United States that was done this way. So I said, well, geez, people were building modular houses, 2-unit modular houses. You know what a modular house is?
I do.
14 by 70, up to 14 by 70, 2 boxes. That was it. So that's a ranch home, right? You can make the 9 by 12 pitch or 12 top pitch to make it interesting, but that's essentially it. Well, I said, well, what if I took an extra box and put it in the middle and then not having 14 by 70, but had 42 by 70, right? Then what if I took and I put it in a premier lot, a couple acre lot on the side of a mountain in State College, Pennsylvania, put that up, put 14 courses of blocks so you could have another like maid's quarters at the bottom, finished it off so it goes out, put a 3-car garage on it, now using that same technology to do it differently. And absolutely, so the house was constructed in the factory in less than 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Think about it. That's a big house. So that house was about 7,000 square foot total. Now, it's a 2-story house, 10-foot ceilings right on the first floor. So the house was just amazing. Done in 2 weeks. Of course, I had to build the 3-car garage, put the block up, wired, etc. But it proves a model because what's the problem? The inefficiency of the system. How long does it take to build a custom house? Why wouldn't you want to do it in a closed facility, in a factory? Because weather is a big problem. As weather drops on your plywood sheeting, it warps.
Right.
And you can't fix it. So why not do it? And it's like, again, keep it simple, stupid. So we did it. One of the houses, I had 87,000 bricks on it, right? Designed it up. And, built 27 of these houses. First were stick and then this. And I understood inefficient in the system. You got a drywaller that one guy knows what he's doing. Another one just got out of prison. Another one is, twice as fast as another person. So, there's all these inconsistencies. So anyhow, what I said is applying technology that at a very high level was, looking at modular homes. Now you see a lot of them. At the time when I did it, there weren't many, especially in that part of Pennsylvania. And I think, so that on a construction tech side, then I have a 3D printing company that does carbon printing, by the way. And you don't hear about carbon printing today. We do, right?
Yeah.
And so we're doing carbon printing with a company. In fact, I just talked to them again yesterday. So use these technologies. Then look at 3D printing. We can print panels of houses. We can print a lot of the pieces for the house. Why don't we use it? Why don't we expand it? These are the areas, I did modular, but these are the areas now that it's becoming even more exciting. Use what we have. Then let's look at Proptech. Let's look at the globalization of the world. Let's talk about the challenges we have. You were in Shenzhen. I've been in Russia. Well, what about cross-border transactions? If I want to buy a house and I'm in London, how do I buy a house in San Francisco? It's not so easy, and it's real
No.
hard now. So why don't we use, technologies? There's a company called Propy for cross-border transactions. Why don't we use those kind of companies to be able to help us? I mean, this is like, again, keep it simple, stupid. People want to buy and sell in different locations. And by the way, the transfer of money and trust is really important. So let's combine all the token economies, the Bitcoin, all of it together and make a very smooth process. And by the way, it's a whole lot safer. I mean, this
Well,
is again, go ahead.
I was just saying, not just in terms of in-person versus non-person, but just in terms of transparency. I mean, in terms of safety, being able to see that entire process, make sure everything is checked off. It's very seamless. That's a 10x better than the current today's process.
Exactly. But why don't we do it? And then the other thing is, you're right about the safety. I don't know in China how you buy a house, but in Russia, you take cash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not a lot of fun if you're taking $500,000 in a suitcase, right? I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out something not good might happen to you, So, I mean, it's literally. And so and then if you want to buy a house in the United States and you got $500,000 in cash, how could you buy it? It becomes a challenge, or Europe or China. How do you do it? So I think, with what happened when I first got involved in La Token and what you're doing here, think about how pandemic has changed things. And now we're still at the issue. How can I buy something? My partner got stranded. His girlfriend got stranded in London 2 days ago, because if you go to London and you're single and not married, you can't come back to the US. You can't come to the US. It's rule 9996 that Trump signed in like March of last year. Really? Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, unless there's some type of, you're somehow working with the government, certain rules. It's like there's restrictions. And London's, UK is not the only country that applies. I know because, I was with the duty officer of the US Embassy in Moscow talking to him about it. It's crazy. So how can we do it? We need to use these technologies to be safer, to be able to be more efficient. And even looking at a house, how do okay, Zillow is great, but it's not always updated. How in the world do you know what kind and is it real? If I see a house that's in San Francisco, how do I know that house is real? How do I do a virtual walkthrough, right?
Right. Well, and these are just beginnings, right? I mean, I think you're spot on in terms of the future of where this technology goes, from how houses are being built, to how they're being repaired, to the buying process, to the selling process, to the viewing process. All of this is in change and development right now, because it has to be. I remember being pitched to companies, about 6 years ago, around, using AR, VR around viewing a home, and people thought it was crazy. Like, we're never going to need this technology. It's like, well, wait a second. 2020 aside, this actually makes a lot of sense. To your point, if I want to look at a property remotely because I'm looking to relocate, right? Not just because I want to buy multiple properties, but maybe I'm looking to relocate somewhere and I want to see that in a different type of experience than just, clicking an image, which, to be fair, a lot of real estate images, to their credit, do a great job of displaying, but also that's not always how it looks in real life. And so you want to see that visually, you want to feel what things look like. And we're seeing, AR technology come up where you can see how furniture fits into your particular area. This is all stuff we've been talking about, and it's finally here. I mean, one of the big advancements in, I think it was iOS, we'll say in the early teens, so either 11 or 12, their big update, was the AR tape measure. And the fact that you could just point and have this digital tape measure, that's something that we should not have had to wait this long, but we did. It's now here, and it changes the way that we think about looking at positioning certain areas or products or whatever in our home, because you do it on the fly.
I mean, that's it, right? I mean, the situation is, it should be really easy if you want to see how your own furniture would fit inside that house, to remove the furniture that's there and see how it fits. The other thing, I was just looking yesterday for myself, Sherwin-Williams has an app that goes on your iPhone. You take a picture and they can match paint. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was because I lost the paint can. I lost the paint can, Kyle, in my house, right? And we love the color. And I tried to match it up by hand to go out the old-fashioned way, where you got the little, pieces
little
of
tab, yeah.
the paint. And I
Yep.
put it up, and it's like impossible. But Sherwin-Williams now has this tool. You can actually paint. What does that do? That makes life a lot easier, doesn't it?
It does. And those three areas, construction, property, and real estate, we'll just call it real estate in general. That area needs that. We need it, and the industry needs it as well. And data plays a big role in this too. I mean, switching gears around artificial
Yeah.
intelligence, I mean, think about all this data that's available or hasn't been available that now can be. How does AI play a role in the future of, again, we'll just umbrella it as real estate, in the industry of real estate and its umbrelling areas?
Well, I mean, so you look at it. I don't want to talk about Morpheus right now because Morpheus has been right at me again. Morpheus misses me. But I mean, you think about it. Your house is going to be IoT enabled.
Yes.
I mean, your house is going to be IoT enabled, and your house at some point will be able to have, I don't want to say a soul, but a personality. Anyhow,
Hmm. Hmm.
David's maybe a soul, but my partner's maybe a soul. But I mean, think about it, because imagine the possibility when you can have devices that says that, listen, the roof is leaking, the roof is
Yeah.
really leaking, and then calls up somebody, you're not there, to be able to make decisions to be able to fix a roof. And then the point is to even negotiate contracts, knows what the right price should be because it's going out on the internet and looked, right?
Hmm.
And that's not that far away. This is not, like, 10-year out technology. This is stuff that can happen now. I mean, the IoT, think about it, your refrigerator. It's not cool enough, or it's too warm, or it's this. Imagine being able to go down through and adjust on its own, smartly adjust based on sensors that, this is the product that's in the refrigerator. How much more efficient is it? Because sometimes you don't need it to be that cool because you got products in there and it stays cooler. So
Right.
these were there.
And I mean, you can even get even more futuristic of what could come in that same situation. The AI that's living and breathing, helping your home survive, also can, deploy nanobots, for instance, that actually go and help and repair that or patch that area. Right? It can trigger a drone that comes and drops a part of it. I mean, there's just so many possibilities, which is exciting. And we're short on time, but I want to get to two more things real quick because I know you're doing a ton in this.
Yeah.
Quantum 5G. Talk
Yeah,
to
I
me.
mean,
What's happening?
the situation is, this is the next frontier. And
Hmm.
this situation with quantum, I really started to get involved with this about 4 months ago, deeply, deeply involved in it. And I mean, imagine a system that's 100 million times faster than a conventional computer, and being able to solve those kind of problems, instantly. I mean, our lives from, I said that 3 weeks ago, I talked to the folks in the top pharmaceutical companies in Europe about artificial intelligence and drug discovery. I mean, and they're talking about, they're using bench time today because they're doing these models on the bench. But now COVID has pushed them to not use the bench and look at AI to be able to do the modeling. Well, when you take quantum computers, I mean, literally, you could have in seconds or minutes or hours the solution to a very sophisticated problem across the board. What does that do? I mean, think about it. It changes everything. So now we use an unsupervised AI. We can start, we are going to be living to 150, like the article I wrote a few weeks ago, right? You were there. And it's interesting. You're right about nanobots and repairing the house, IoT. The other thing is, Kyle, just think about this. In your house, the quality of air, based on the fires out in San Francisco, how lousy the air quality was. You didn't know exactly in your house what it was, but imagine if you could have systems set up tied into your air conditioning systems to adjust, right? To change, to be able to filter it out. So exactly. It's crazy. We don't even know what the quality of water we drink, and we drink it out of the faucet, right? Use it to make ice cubes, use it to this. How do you know there's not geodiasis? How do you know there aren't heavy metals? And yet people never question the simple things.
Hmm. Never. And
Never.
it's the power of that with mixed with data and then giving us actionable insights back changes not just our lives, but changes the world. This is real stuff too. We're getting excited because we live it, we know about it both and externally and internally, but this is really something that will change the world here in the
Oh,
coming
and
months and
it's
coming
there,
years.
Kyle. I mean, look at it. We got, radon. Radon
Yeah,
is in a house. But why is it that you only test it when you sell the house? What do you think while you're living in it? I mean, what happens if it spikes and you're in there and it causes cancer, right? Don't you
right.
want to know? But it's like crazy. We don't go down through. Well, houses are going to very soon with IoT be able to monitor everything. So crooks, people coming into your house now, we've got Ring cameras, but there's a whole lot of other things. Imagine having the systems automatically set up with facial recognition to identify who the crook is coming in and send it out to the police department, right? Videotape and taken using encrypted messaging systems like Frisbee to be able to, it's literally called Frisbee, to be able to send it out to the police so the police can look at it to say, what, here's the deal, and dispatch a car automatically.
I mean, it's an incredibly exciting future that is already here, as we've stated. I mean, it's so much. With that, what are you most excited about? If you had to pick all the stuff you and I have talked about a lot, you had to pick it all. What are you most excited about looking for the next 10 years ahead?
Yeah, I mean, the
Most
thing is,
excited.
I'm looking now that we're on the horizon of, and I'm not saying this loosely, I'm telling you directly, because if it had got 18 companies that were invested in that were moving in that direction. So when I say it, I mean, we have companies like this. So we are at the dawn of a challenge. Infobesity is what I talk about a lot by Toffler and Future Shock, but that's where we are. We're inundated. We must make sense of the data coming at us. I don't care if you're building cars, if you're doing manufacturing and other products or healthcare or space, it doesn't matter. We're inundated with the data. So each one of us, there's going to be two tiers of society, the people that know and the people that don't know. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of difference in income associated with it. So we need to democratize these opportunities and give people equal access. The good news is, Skype and how the pandemic has affected us has changed it a lot, but not to the total amount, because there's still people in Africa that don't have computers that can't get online. Now we're creating a two-tiered society. But the good news is, if we understand that and do something about it, this is just incredible. 5G, of course, is having a dramatic impact, but the Chinese just launched a 6G satellite.
Yep.
It's 92
And
gigabits.
Samsung was already, Samsung bypassed. I mean, they focused on it because everyone else was, they bypassed it, went right to 6G. They were like, okay, cool,
Think about
5G,
it.
let's talk about it.
Now think
Yeah.
about it. So you're in your house, right? Now you have sensors within your house and you've got a 6G or 5G connection. How does that change things? Then
Mhm.
do we really need to have Xfinity set up in our house if we have 5G or 6G? You don't,
Mhm. Maybe you
right?
want a dedicated line. I mean, maybe there's the few instances you want a dedicated line, which may be different, but for the foreseeable future, I mean, if 5G and 6G and the future of connectivity takes off, and we look at the processing of edge, you're right. Unless you don't,
Well,
if you
that's
need a
it.
dedicated
So,
line, you needed it. But if not,
and
why?
the startups, shouldn't they be thinking this is like keep it simple, stupid time?
Mhm.
Focus on 5G. Why? Because this phone is now going to become a lot different for you. The sensors in your house are going to be able to be accessed in an entirely different way. In manufacturing, in healthcare, it's just going to change. So if I, as a startup, you're asking about the future, I would be looking at how I can incorporate 5G and 6G into I would start with 5G now because it's out. And I would say, what about 6G? And I would think, how is that going to change the domain? And it profoundly impact artificial intelligence. Kyle, my number one article was deep learning and machine learning. I never thought in a million years in Forbes that article I wrote about Tesla, all kinds of things, but that people don't understand. They don't have a fundamental understanding of what unsupervised AI is. And so if they don't understand it, how can they implement it? On the other side, I have top executives from all over the world contact me almost on a daily basis, right? Business daily basis. there is a great opportunity for startups to get it right, and especially teams. And I talk about three things, right? You want to have intergenerational team. So it's nice to have people that have experience, older, who are well known, especially today, because it builds
Mhm.
trust. You need multicultural diversity. So you want to have a mixed team from all kinds of different places, because diversity breeds new ideas. Then you want to have a decentralized team. So having your R&D work in a place like Russia or Ukraine or Israel, someplace, Africa, someplace have it set up, and then, do it wisely. So again, keep it simple, stupid. Silicon Valley is a port to the rest of the world. Like it or not, good, bad, or indifferent, 50% of the money is still located there. And guess what? If you want to raise money from Japan, from Docomo Ventures, they're down in Palo Alto. If you want to get Verizon, they're there. If you want to meet Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile, they're in San Francisco. Those companies are there. And so why would you, if you're going to go fishing in a pond, this is, again, I'm a country boy, right? When I was a
Mhm.
kid growing up, my friend said to me, "Hey, you want to go fishing?" And I said, "Where do you want to go?" He said, "There's this place. I've never been to it. I'm not sure there's any fish." And I said, "Well, I've been to this place and I've got some big pike down there." So I said, "Why would we go to the other place when I know that I almost caught a 24-inch pike? I caught a few, but a big northern pickerel, actually." And I said, "Why wouldn't we go there?" So we went to my place and we got our limit. And so, the lessons learned is you got to fish in the right pond. Keep it simple. Go,
Absolutely.
keep it simple. And a lot of times these startups, I just had a conversation with a startup that's got a guy with 4 PhDs. Literally, it's the only person I've met. He personally has 4 PhDs. So why wouldn't you go down through? Why over engineer the product? Make sure you got product market fit and people want to buy it. If you keep
Mhm.
engineering, you're going to burn cash. So if you're doing construction tech or prop tech or real estate tech, make sure that you have customers, as Steve Blank and Bob Dorf say, that are willing to grab it out of your hands, the product.
Yes.
Don't over engineer it. And because if you do, and then fake it till you make it. It's nice. Come up with a PowerPoint presentation and do customer development. If I got a, prop tech, I'm making assumptions, and assumptions, right? And make an ass out of you and me. So you
Mhm.
got to prove that they're right. Prove that it works.
It's it is absolutely true. And Gary, I apologize. We're at the top of the hour, so I want to make sure everyone hears where they can find you to continue this conversation, because there's so much more we could talk about. We could go on for 3 hours. You're a great guest. You're a great friend, and also an outstanding investor and entrepreneur. Definitely love these conversations with you. But where can everyone find you online to continue the
Oh yeah.
conversation along with your shows?
No, I'm humbled, Kyle. I really appreciate it, and I enjoy seeing you. It makes my day. I have my chief of staff carve out time, especially so I can spend time with you. I enjoy it.
Thank you.
You can reach me on Twitter, Gary Fowler, Gary at GSDVS. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can check our website at gsdvs.com. We have our shows, the shows I have coming up. And again, I'm doing them every week now. And we're reaching out to about 900,000 people. So we got quite a broad reach today. And the idea is, I don't make anything on it. The key is to spread the knowledge and goodwill. It's to, bring people together. So I also have Gary's picks. If you got a really cool startup and you think that it's right at the top of the game, I'm happy to highlight on Gary's picks. It's a show sponsored by some of the top VCs in Silicon Valley. And again, I don't make any money on it. The key is to provide a service to startups to be able to, democratize the opportunity. So Tuesday and Wednesday, the shows are on, and I'd be happy to entertain folks. And again, I appreciate it. I write a lot. I've got 5 more articles coming out this week that I've written. So uh, you can check those out anytime. They're in Forbes, Medium, Security Informed, different topics. I'm just a curious kid. A curiosity just is amazing for me. Creativity and understanding what's happening in the world.
Wonderful. And Gary, thank you again so very much for your time today, and just in general for being here with us on VCTV. And to your audience, if you like what you heard, make sure you definitely reach out to Gary, but also click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and also reach out if you'd like to be on a show like Gary today and other investors here on VCTV. Thank you, Gary. Also, a big, big thank you to the LA Token team and to Maria for making VCTV possible. Gary gave you a shout out where you can find him. Make sure you do reach out, add context as to where you heard or what you would like to continue the conversation about with him. That being said, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find both Gary and I online 24/7, 365. We'll talk to you soon with more VCTV all week.